Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of In the Blue Corner on this Sunday night, the last day of July. And it looks like we had some technical issues which kept us about nearly half an hour late. We do apologise for that. I'm not sure what happened or what the glitch was, but Steve, you seem to have worked it out. Not sure what the issue was, but maybe you can share it with me either on air or off air. I'm not sure.
I think if I knew that, we'd be able to turn Carlton's form around as well.
The Gremlins are maybe the Gremlins are watching or something. Maybe there may be some conspiracies about this. Anyway, look, welcome anyone who's still cared to wait for us. We do appreciate your patience and your loyalty. Maybe you could alert the rest of our viewing audience that, yes, we are actually on. It looked like we might have to defer till tomorrow night the way we were going, but not sure what you did, Steve, so I'll wait for you to tell me later. Anyway, maybe turned on the computer or something.
It was the old manual restart.
Right.
Several times, but it was in and out. Anyway, let's not worry about that.
We got there. Anyway, a little bit like Carlton Football Club last night at Adelaide. We were a bit stop-start and failed to get going. That was a disappointing performance. Honestly, I thought that was by far and away the worst performance we put in this year. I think the scoreboard actually flattered us.
Did you think? Wow, absolutely. Did you think that as a team or as a club we're past that sort of stuff?
Clearly not.
Well, yeah, because I think a lot of supporters.
I thought we were, but clearly we're not.
Yeah, a lot of supporters have thought, look, we'll probably potentially lose games to better teams, or sometimes not show up on the night, etc., etc. But to go, albeit away from home, but to really just what did we kick, about 55 points or something, right? And not even look like we were at the races at all. Against the side.
It was our equal lowest score for the year, 8755, which is the same as what we scored against Geelong, I think, about 2 weeks ago.
So if you look at even games like against Geelong, outplayed for most of the game, but there were periods of time where you still would have thought in the game that Carlton could have.
Oh, look, I thought the effort was there against Geelong. I think we were just beaten by a better team.
Correct.
But last night, where do you start? It was almost like turning the clock back a year or two, or even 3 or 4, in the sort of last years of Bolton. I don't know where to start. I just think the effort wasn't there. It just looked like we were passengers and second to the ball and not running and not tackling and not doing all the things that have made us a pretty good side this year.
I would think that every team's going to try and want to beat Carlton of recent because they're a better side, and every team turns up to play every week. But we would have been prepared Saturday night in front of their home crowd. They would have come out strong, and so they did. And full credit to Adelaide, they gave it a great effort. And
full marks to Adelaide, absolutely.
Yeah. But we just didn't even match it with them in effort. That's really what it was about, wasn't it?
Yeah, look, forget the stats, forget the strategies and all the rest of the things that coaching staff would probably be normally looking at. I think it comes down to wanting it and comes down to, actually showing some endeavour. And I just don't think we, at any stage last night, looked like a side that was really trying hard to win this game.
No.
I mean, I'm not saying that players don't try or that they go out there deliberately not to try, but they just looked really lacklustre. Really lacklustre.
So Lana's Owens has made a comment on screen. Essentially, don't leave Sauce out again from the team. Well,
yeah,
I think the comments on that from Michael Voss and look, I think Silvani's effort and selflessness for the team for the season has been excellent and a great example of what we have improved and how he's improved his game.
Mm-hmm.
But Voss did say that there were too many talls, and as Silvani was playing that sort of ruck role, he would be left out of the side for team balance, I suppose. I think,
but that's not his major role.
No,
he was a backup ruckman at a time when
our
main ruckman was out, but he's essentially a high half forward, really.
Absolutely.
Isn't he?
So, I didn't understand that at all. Number one, and then if you look at the game itself, our midfielders have got Cripps and Walsh got 80 possessions between them.
Yep, 40 each, roughly.
Yeah, and we couldn't kick more than 7 goals or something. Oh, really? That's just showing how many.
Well, look, there's one thing to get the ball 80 times or 40 times each. It's a matter of what you do with it and how you impact the contest and how you impact the game with those 80 possessions. Now, don't get me wrong. I think that those two players were amongst our top 5 on the ground. But did they ever really look like hurting Adelaide with all of those possessions? I don't think they did.
But none of their teammates were around them coming into the game at all. They couldn't carry the team.
And those guys are
essentially,
those guys are essentially go in and get it type players and distribute it out to outside players and
who would not exist?
Wingers and half forwards and all that sort of thing.
When the ball hit the deck, it was just obvious. We were second to the ball every time.
All night.
Yep.
Look, no excuses. They just wanted it more than we did, and the signs were there really early. As early, in fact, as the first goal of the game, where Mark Pitnet just got pushed off the ball in a ruck contest, and Taylor Walker just put it onto his boot and kicked the goal. It reminded me of Tom Hawkins. That was his father, Jack, wasn't it? Tom Hawkins kicking a goal against us 2 weeks ago in exactly the same fashion. There was no ruckman. He just grabbed it out of the ruck and kicked the goal. Now, this time did have the ruckman there, but he was just so easily pushed aside by Taylor Walker, who's not really a ruckman. He's a full forward or centre half forward, and he just went and brushed him off like he didn't even matter and kicked the goal straight away. As soon as you see that sort of thing, you've got to start thinking, hang on, this is not a good sign. And even though we had a small lead at quarter time, I think it was, 3-1-19 to 2-4-16 or something. We never really ever looked like getting out of second gear in that game. And Adelaide, to their credit, they played to a plan and they took us apart. They really did. They pulled our pants down. Our players should be embarrassed about that performance last night. Absolutely embarrassed. And so close to the start of the final series, to put in a shocker like that, gee, they're going to have to respond next week against Brisbane up at the Gabba, and that will not be an easy task. Brisbane themselves lost the game today that, they looked to have in their control, but then Richmond came storming back and knocked them over. So
can you
back on their home deck, they're not going to be easy to beat, and they'll be even smarting from that loss too now today. So they'll be even harder to beat, in my opinion.
Can you use the word final series or the words final series? Should you be even using those?
Well, there is still a mathematical chance that we won't make it. I don't think that will occur. I think we will pull a win out of one of the next 3. Don't ask me why or what my logic is. I just have a feeling that we are going to put in a performance that will win a game in the next 3. It could even be the last one against Collingwood. It might even come down to that. It might even come down to Carlton versus Collingwood on Sunday, the 21st of August. Final home and away game of the year, and we're playing for a spot in the finals. And if we lose, we might lose that spot.
Wouldn't they love to do that to us. But anyway.
Well, look, it you never know. We could slip out of the 8 if we lose the next 3. I don't think that'll happen. And the other thing is that I don't know that the sides below us are going to do enough to tip us out, because you don't just need. St Kilda are a 1 win below us as well. They've got a couple of hard games coming up.
St Kilda got Fremantle, so essentially, if St Kilda can't beat Fremantle,
we may still make it, Steve, even if we don't win any of the next 3. We may still actually fall into 7th or 8th.
Then it becomes about percentage, though, too, because if we get pumped against Melbourne or against Brisbane, then
or Collingwood,
then it will be that could drop us half a dozen% at least. So
Now, just before we get on to the next comment, I just wanted to say, if you're out there watching and would like to partake in tonight's show, if you'd like to express your opinions or your views, or ask us a question, or make a comment in any way, shape or form, by all means do that on our Facebook page In the Blue Corner, and you'll see our show being broadcast live there, and also on YouTube, the same channel name, In the Blue Corner. So we look forward to your participation. We love reading your comments. If there are any relevant comments that we think should be put up on screen, we'll do that. We have Chris Beach, of course, who hosts or co-hosts the Wednesday edition of this show, along with Joe Lutzer. He's, in fact, I think Beachy went over to Adelaide, if my memory serves me correctly. Evening, gents, as someone who, there you go, went to Adelaide expecting a W. Considering our last 3 weeks coming up, as you said, it won't be easy. Yes, well, Beachy, I feel for you, mate. I've been to a number of interstate games over the years where we've come away with nothing, nothing to show for it. I know how you feel. It must be a pretty empty feeling going to all that trouble and expense to go interstate and have to come home with your tail in between your legs.
It's not just that, though, for poor Chris.
And others who have travelled over there.
Yeah, of course. A win on the road is, more valuable. Yeah, it's had more difficulties, but to just have not fired a shot, I think that would have been the most disappointing.
Well, it's the way we played. I think that's what it is.
Most
Carlton supporters are reasonable people. They can accept, if you know what I mean by accept defeat, as in they realise that you can't win every game. And at times you're going to get beaten. But what they want to see is genuine effort, genuine intent, and to play with a vigour and a zest for the contest. And there was just nothing of that sort at all last night. It was very, very lacklustre.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the final score, Adelaide, what was it?
29 points.
Sorry, 84, wasn't it?
84 to 55.
Yeah, 12-84, I think it was, wasn't it?
Yep.
I'm pretty sure. To 8-7-55. So pretty comprehensive victory. Well, was it? I actually predicted, if you remember this time last week, I said Carlton by 29 points, and you said, why not 30? And I said, all right, 30. And I said it was 29 because it was my, part of my birthday or something like that. I recall saying that. So it ended up being Adelaide by 29. Goodness me. So yes, look, there was only a marginal 3 points in it at quarter time, and even at halftime, I thought that the scoreboard flattered us. They got ahead. They got a reasonable lead. Then we scored a couple of late ones, and all of a sudden it was 5-6 to 5-2 at halftime, and you just thought, okay. A little bit like that GWS game last week where they were in it for a half and you just thought, okay, we're only 10 minutes away from breaking this game wide open now. But it wasn't us that broke it open. It was actually Adelaide this time.
Is that the problem, though? And I think we've talked about this where we've played patchy or brilliant quarters in games. Is it the problem that the players have been accustomed to flicking that switch.
Flicking the switch, yeah.
And the switch wasn't there to be flicked at all.
Well, they were all waiting for someone else to flick it. That's the problem. And no one did. And it was Adelaide who actually pulled away a little bit. I mean, they're not the sort of side that's ever going to, monster the opposition. They are very workmanlike in the way they go about it. But, 3 goals, 3 to 1 goal, 4 in the third quarter. They held a 17-point lead there, 2 goals, 3. Was it 15 points? 15 points, sorry, at three-quarter time. Hardly a match-winning lead, but it just never looked like we were going to do anything. And you're thinking in the last quarter, are Carlton going to make some sort of a charge? Are they going to put 3 or 4 in a row? Because that's what we needed to do.
Couldn't string 2 goals together in consecutive
No, that's right. And in the end, they scored 4 goals, 3 to only 2 goals, 1 in the last, and pulled away in the end to win by 29 points. So, look, that is, I don't know what else you can say. It was our worst performance for the year, in my view, because we at no stage looked to do anything that was impressive. Unlike all the other losses we've had, where we've actually had some good patches in the game, this loss was just terrible.
So there's 2 things that could happen from here. This loss could potentially be the sign of more problems.
Yep.
They don't just the loss just doesn't happen like that.
Yeah.
Or for some optimistic reason, the team bounces back and it's a turning point. It's a wake up call and all of those sorts of things, and potentially, but you can't flirt with your form nonetheless, right?
Well, look, we've said every week in the last 9 weeks, okay, because it actually has been a 9-week period that we've had this win-loss situation. We've actually won only 4 of our last 9 games. Now, that's hardly what you'd call good form leading into a final series.
No.
And the sides that we've beaten include sides like, Essendon, GWS. We had a good win over Fremantle. Yes, I accept that one. Just trying to think of the other one that we won. Oh, and West Coast. So, West Coast, Essendon, GWS, they're all bottom 5, bottom 6 teams. The only good one in there was the Fremantle one that we beat them here in Melbourne.
So when we
but we've lost 6 games. Sorry, we've lost 5 out of those 9 to sides, yes, up around the top 8, like Geelong and like St Kilda. Well, St Kilda's below us on the ladder, but nevertheless, you'd call them at the moment a top 8 team, only this round.
Yeah.
But we've also had losses against, like Adelaide and Richmond and Collingwood. So
is the problem though? You mentioned the Fremantle game, and we all get excited and champagne football and great effort and how good do the forwards look and how good's the ball movement? How quick does it just go through that corridor and and do we get excited and look at that as the benchmark, which it is, but then not see the gap between the worst form or the games, as you mentioned, right? Does that con us a little bit? Does that?
Well, we tend to latch on to all the good things that we're doing and hold on to them because they give us hope, you see.
Yes,
but
correct.
What we're starting to realise is that Fremantle now, especially with their form, they're not a top 4 team. They're going to finish in the 5th to 8th bracket. They're very much a side like us. Yeah. They're a little bit hit and miss. And, a win against them at the time, they looked like a top 4 team. They'd beaten sides like Melbourne.
Yeah.
But, they've also lost to some lower sides on the ladder. So
the second half that Fremantle played against Melbourne was like one of the Carlton champagne football games, right?
Well, interestingly, as I said, they'd beaten Melbourne, 2 months ago, so we rated them very highly because of that win. In fact, that was the first of Melbourne's losses for the year. So Melbourne, up until that point, had won 10 in a row.
Yeah.
And their first loss was against Fremantle. So now Friday night, you saw Melbourne starting to say, hey, okay, we're going to play finals type football against you now.
Season. Here we go.
On your home ground. And what did? They pulled Fremantle's pants down this time.
Comprehensively. On
their home ground. So I think that we're still yet to prove that we are anything better than a fifth to eighth type team. I don't think top four. We haven't beaten anyone in the top four.
But the glimpses of hope, it's the problem almost. It gets the expectations higher than what they should be. But over the whole course of the season, it's probably those other performances that we probably that's where we really are.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, now we have to go to Brisbane next week and play them on their home ground. And, you know, really that loss they had against Essendon, where they had, you know, so many players had to be taken out of their team because of these stupid, ridiculous COVID laws. And they lost the game only by 10 points, and they literally had half of a seconds team in there, and they still almost pulled it off. I rate Brisbane higher than Sydney, personally, but clearly, you know, they're jockeying for fourth position on the ladder at the moment. So, you know, there's only a couple of % in it between the two of them. But look, I just think that we've got a lot of worrying signs there. We're now starting to be exposed for some of our flaws and some of our deficiencies. And a lot of players that we've got in that team at the moment are also being exposed for their weaknesses, if you like. And a lot of them had very poor games last night. Getting back to, was it Gina or Lana who mentioned about Jack Silvani being dropped and that's the last time they should ever drop him? Well, I don't think that decision was what caused last night to happen at all. In fact, in the end, he came on because he was an injury sub or medical sub. So in the end, he played almost a full game anyway. And I thought he did relatively well last night. He'd probably hold his position in the team. He gave us something, and he certainly would have been trying a little bit extra hard last night, considering the circumstances leading up to his coming onto the ground. But and we did cop a few injuries last night too, at very inopportune moments that left us a bit down on manpower on the bench. But nevertheless, that doesn't, in my opinion, compensate for the way the other 20-odd players went about their work last night. They looked very poor. It was just terrible.
Yeah.
Anyway, I guess what we should do is just go into some individual players at this stage before we do our votes on the game. Well, of course, you know, as you'd expect with injuries and going off the ground, our lowest possession players were guys like Newman and Durden, who only had 5 possessions and 4 possessions respectively, but obviously going off early in the game didn't help. But other than them, the other 2 small forwards, Owies and Motlop, they didn't do a lot, but they both scored a goal each. What did you make of our small forwards on the night? Obviously, Durden went off injured, but
Paul,
Owies and Motlop. But what do you think of the decision to play all 3 of them for starters?
No,
as well as 3 relatively tall forwards in Mackay, Curnow, and now De Koning, because he'd been relieved of the first ruck.
Yeah.
Did we go in too top heavy or too small forward centric, if you know what I mean?
Well, the problem is it's the small forwards role around the tall players. I think they don't have the chemistry right at all there. I really believe that the small forwards, there's a lot of work they need to do from a positioning perspective when the ball is kicked to a Harry or a Charlie, for example, right? And where they're positioned and how they crumb. for that.
Yep.
Or how they open the space or clear the space for those players to operate. That's my view. I think they tend to not play as small forwards. They tend to play as almost mid-sized forwards and trying to command the ball themselves too much. They need to be at the feet of these two focal points, don't they? That's the whole point, isn't it?
Yeah. To me, they're not getting enough of the ball. I mean, if a small forward kicks you 2 goals a game, you'd say, okay, tick, pass mark, doesn't matter how many possessions you have.
Yeah.
But if you're not kicking at least 2 goals a game, and you're either kicking only 1 goal or nothing, geez, you'd want to be trying to justify your position based on forward pressure, tackles, smothers,
why are
shepherds,
they not getting enough of the
etc.
ball, Vince? This is what I'm trying to say, because they're
probably not positioning themselves at the right in the right places at the right times to crumb off the tall forwards. But
exactly, that's what I'm trying to say.
I actually wonder whether even the tall forwards are positioning themselves right at the moment, because I reckon the form of Harry Mackay would have to be concerning our coaching staff. He's had a very ordinary month, and last night he was right off his game, if you ask me. And when he took that shot for goal, what was he? He might have been. I think he took the mark 20 metres out, and probably took the kick from 25 metres out and decided to do a banana kick. When really from 25 metres out, I mean, really?
We're going to have this conversation again.
If you're right on the boundary line, I could probably understand it as a left footer on the left-hand side. But when you're only just on a slight angle, why wouldn't you kick a drop punt? It wasn't a very tough angle, really. And he missed it so badly to the left-hand side. That, to me, just said everything. It was almost laconic. You talked about Lairising last week against GWS. Well, I think that was taken to a new level by Harry last night.
And it takes the pressure off the player by kicking around the corner. It takes the pressure off them. But if you kick a drop punt, you're putting yourself under more pressure. By kicking around the corner, you're giving yourself an out to say, I'm trying a specific type of kick.
No, I don't think it gives you an out at all. In fact, I think it means
mentally though.
If you try that when really by rights that shot should have been a drop punt, because it's not like he was on a really tight angle where he only had the eye of a needle to try and thread it through. He was just to the left-hand side of directly in front. Now, I'm sorry, but you've got to kick those shots as a drop punt. And if you choose to try an around-the-corner kick or a banana kick or whatever other sort of kick you care to name, and it doesn't work, you should have your backside kicked for that. And seriously, I know one thing, on the jumper punch on Tuesday night, someone, whether it's Rocco or Paul or Mars, is going to call him the banana of the week, because that was ridiculous. and then Adelaide got the ball and took it down the other end and kicked the goal from memory. That to me was the story of the night. Now, that sort of behaviour, and it's that's the sort of bad habits that I'm talking about. Top teams don't do that.
He kicks that goal around the corner, and no one says anything. Now, I don't
know about no one says anything. People will still comment that, geez, he's kicked it. He's done, he's done the banana and he's got it through. But geez, if that didn't work out, he had the coach would have had every right to kick his backside. And I hope he did kick his backside, because it did miss, and it was a kick that we really needed to go through at the time. Yeah, so
it's irresponsible.
Charlie Curnow started off pretty well, got a couple of goals out the back in the first quarter, but after that, had no impact on the game. The form of these two guys is got to be of some concern, especially Mackay.
Between those two players, and the team can manage 8 goals for the night.
Yeah.
And you've got those two players there against a side that's basically, 12th or 13th on the ladder. I mean, that is...
12th or 13th, tried at the time, I think at the time before their victory, they were 16th. They were 16th. I'm pretty sure they were 16th. I think they were third last on the ladder when we actually started the game. Yeah, now they've gone up a couple of notches because they actually won, and I think they might have gone ahead of someone else. But anyway.
Yeah,
GWS are now 16th, I think.
But to think between them, that's all they could manage. Now, those teams, for a reason, are not sound defensively, and you're going to get between those two players 6 goals at least.
Yep,
at least, just.
Yeah. I don't know. I just think we've got some real issues in that forward line, and the half forward line has got to be a major concern as well. It's just not functioning like a half forward line should. I think it's a big worry. I'm mentioning about the players. By the way, Adelaide went up 1 spot on the ladder to 15th after last night's win. But they're still a bottom 4 side. So we got beaten by a bottom 4 side on their home deck, and most Carlton people, and it looks like the players as well, must have thought that we're just going to go over there and just win. It doesn't happen like that. You've still got to be right on your game. It's been proven time and time again. If you're 5% off, you're going to get your pants pulled down.
Agreed.
And we did. Other players I wanted to ask you about were our wingers and midfielders. Now, what did you make of that? I mean, Cripps had 41 possessions, 18 kicks and 23 hand passes, laid 6 tackles, even had a hit out. To me, he was just unbelievable. He tried to carry the team on his back last night.
Yep.
And Walsh was his deputy, so it was like Batman and Robin in full flight. But, and Walsh also, 40 possessions, 17 kicks and 23 hand passes, 6 marks and 3 tackles. So, they almost had identical stats. But despite their dominance around the midfield, we never looked a threat. So what do you make of Adam Chera, Matthew Kennedy, guys like that who normally play in the midfield?
So Kennedy, I think you've got to cut him some slack there.
He ended up getting concussed. I dare say he's probably going to have to miss next week.
No, he is. He'll be out next week. So that.
And Chera, what do you make of Chera's game, and also what do you make of his season? Because I think secretly a lot of the people at the club would be a bit concerned about his form and a bit nonplussed about his entire season.
So he's an outside type player, right? I mean, link up play, you need that around those two players, Walsh and Cripps especially. And looks classy when he's got the ball, but does he actually hurt? Does he hurt teams?
Because what? You have a look at how many times he gets the ball and he kicks it backwards or sideways. He doesn't hurt the opposition. Yeah. Now, he's had 24 disposals, which is not terrible. It's 24 disposals is what you'd call a serviceable average type game for a midfielder. Yeah. It's nothing spectacular, but it certainly doesn't mean you're going to get dropped next week.
No.
But how has he hurt the opposition with them? I reckon we missed George Hewitt a lot more last night than what we missed when we didn't have Chera in the team.
I'd rather Hewitt over Chera, albeit Hewitt's probably that inside and outside midfielder. Chera's more outside, and we do need that outside speed. But I would much rather, from a consistency perspective, I'd have Hewitt. Yeah. And yet, if you think of these boom recruits, these that we had in the off season, Hewitt was probably the most understated of them. We probably didn't pay anywhere near compared to what we paid for Chera. But you look at him; he's the BP quiet achiever, isn't he? Really, you think about it.
Yep, no doubt. See, to me, it doesn't matter what they're paid. I look at the form, and I look at the impact, and I look at how much do you really miss them when they're not playing? And I think we clearly miss George Hewitt when he doesn't play.
Agreed.
A lot more than we miss Chera when he doesn't play. Kennedy, I think, has been probably another one that's more than earned his spot in that midfield, and we will miss him next week. I think there was a few possessions he butchered last night. Look, a lot of our midfielders butchered the ball, as Lana is telling us here up on screen, but I think we have to get to work on that side of things. Our disposal efficiency is terrible last night. It's just amazing how badly we've dropped off. And leading into these last 3 games are against really good opponents. Brisbane, Melbourne, Collingwood, they're all top 5 teams.
So if you were to say that Cripps and Walsh should get 40 possessions each, you'd have Curnow and Mackay both playing in the team, both fit.
Yep.
Well, physically, maybe not mentally, but physically.
And Chera and Kennedy are in the mid-20s in their possessions.
Yeah. And you kick
and Doherty's also got over 30 possessions.
Yeah.
Driving the ball forward from the back line.
Yeah. And you're against a bottom 4 side.
Yep.
And the best you could muster is 8 goals, 7.
Yep.
And you lose by 29 points. And basically it wasn't bad conditions. You'd think, what the hell's going on with the other players? You would think that there's pretty much there's passengers galore. The train is full, absolutely full of passengers.
Well, the other thing is that your 2 halfback flankers in Doherty on the right side and Sard on the left side both get, what the Sard had 26 possessions and Doherty had 32.
Yeah.
Doherty had 21 kicks and Sard had 23.
But we gave
23 wolves for the game.
Yeah, they were wolves, but the ball was given straight back to the almost.
Oh, look, he had a lot of cheap possessions in that last quarter that went nowhere. I actually think Adam Sard last night lowered his colours, even though he got 26 possessions. Ben Keys had more impact on that game than most other players. Probably the only other one I'd potentially put in front of him would be Taylor Walker, who I thought was magnificent for Adelaide.
But you look at Keys, right? Knocking the ball on, gut running. None of our players did any of that. There was no desperation at all compared to.
No. They wanted it more.
Yeah,
it was a classic game of they wanted it more. They did everything that they had to do to win, and they won.
Yeah.
And we didn't do any of those things. So really, justice prevailed. We did not deserve to win that game, not by a long way. And in fact, to be honest, I think the scoreboard flattered us. We probably should have lost by about 8 goals.
In Sard's defence, he's had a magnificent season. So it's just unfortunate timing.
I'm not saying he had a terrible game. I'm just saying he lowered his colours.
Yeah.
And his opponent, in my view, would have got 2 Brownlow votes last night and Taylor Walker 3. And look, you could raffle the other ones. I mean, Brodie Smith to get 37 possessions, 28 kicks.
Yeah,
he was brilliant, number 33 for Adelaide, and so was Rory Laird.
Yep.
And the former Sydney player Dawson, he was pretty good too.
Yes.
So I mean, look, they would have had half a dozen players at least that could have been in the votes last night.
Agreed.
So talking about votes, we've got to give our own 3-2-1 for Carlton players only on a disappointing night. Who are you going to give your 3 votes to? And your 2 and your 1?
Cripps for 3, Walsh for 2, Doherty for 1. But gee, I couldn't find him. Lucky those 3 players played half reasonable. Otherwise, I don't know who else I'd be putting in.
Yeah, I'm inclined to go in a similar fashion. Yes, a lot of those players had very little of the ball last night. And some of the ones who even did have a bit of ball last night butchered it, even though they got it a fair bit.
Yeah.
I went the same. I went Cripps 3, Walsh 2, and Doherty 1. But I was tempted to give Kennedy 1, but I think he butchered the ball a bit too much. So anyway, in other words, our main leaders, they were the ones who tried to carry the rest of the team with them. But a lot of our lesser lights had very quiet games, I thought, last night. Yeah. And some of them will be a little bit worried about next week in terms of whether they keep their positions in the team.
Well, we've got those injuries. So Kennedy, Newman may not come up. Kennedy will probably not play because of protocols with the concussion.
Well, if George Hewitt's available, he'll come in for Kennedy.
Yeah.
If Newman's out injured with that knee, you'd probably suggest someone like. Normally, you'd suggest someone like Stocker, but Stocker himself, in fact, in the VFL game, which Carlton's VFL team, who were at the time top 4, they lost the game to the third team that was third last on the ladder, who'd hardly fired a shot all year, and they lost. Can't believe it.
Yeah.
And I think Stocker got knocked out in the VFL, so he probably can't come back, even if you want him to come back.
So I think in the VFL, and we're not going to go down have this perennial debate again about Paddy Dow, but he was probably one of the better players in the VFL. But there weren't many standouts at all there. So,
well, Paddy Dow might be the only chance for Paddy Dow would be as if George Hewitt's not right to come back.
Yep.
And if we lose George Hewitt, so if we still have George Hewitt missing and we have Kennedy out, then maybe, just maybe, Paddy Dow gets a gig. Not sure. Yes, what's wrong with Weeders at the moment, boys? Unweeteristic performance. I love those words. Yeah, look, I'd have to say that since Jacob Wiedering went down with that injury a few weeks ago and then came back, I think this was his third game back? I'm pretty sure it's his third game back, or is it his fourth? It might be his fourth, actually.
Or was it?
No, I think he came back against West Coast.
Or was it Geelong? Well, maybe it was his fourth.
No. He played against West Coast, then he played against Geelong. Then last week was his third. So this was his fourth game back. But in these 4 games that he's played, he's looked very unsure of himself, and he's just lost all form.
Yeah, he's not attacking the ball like he used to.
He doesn't have the same level of confidence, does he?
Yeah, that's exactly what
I do wonder whether that injury is still playing up on him or not. Yeah. I don't know.
Again, he's got a lot of friends out there that haven't got much confidence either, unfortunately. He's not the only one.
Yes. Anyway. All right. So next week, other changes that you think could be made?
Well, what does he do, Voss, right? Does he go make a statement? Does he say...
Oh, I think he's got to make a statement. Look, all year, every time we've had a loss, someone has been dropped.
Okay, but you got...
And I think that's called selection integrity.
Yeah. You got Kemp and Dow. Surely they have to come in then, right? But I'm just...
Well, depending on how well they're playing. Are they playing any good in the VFL?
Well, they're not... I don't believe that they're playing fantastically well. But what do you do?
I would have thought the Lockie Fogarty, number 8, he would have been a good chance to come in. Because I think he might have played a pretty good game in the VFL team.
What position would you put him in? Who would you put him in for, though?
Well, I'd probably bring him in for what I'd do is I'd shuffle the side around a little bit.
Yeah.
So if Newman's going out, I'd probably have to stick with Marchbank was the other one I was thinking of. Bring Marchbank back into the side.
Yep.
Because he got through unscathed in the VFL, and I just think he's too good. He is quality, Marchbank. Absolutely no doubt he is a quality footballer. And I don't think we can waste him by playing him in VFL games anymore. If he's gotten through, I would be bringing Marchbank back, and I think Fogarty's deserved his opportunity to come back. He's played very well in recent games at VFL level, and I think he's deserved his spot back in the team.
Oh, I would agree.
John Holden. Hi, John. Good to see John always. I agree. Fogarty in for Setterfield. Wow.
Oh.
So you think Fogarty should come in? I'm not sure about Setterfield, whether I'd be replacing him. I think he had a pretty good game last week, but might have been a bit quiet last night. But I think there are a couple of other players that should be dropped ahead of Setterfield.
Yeah, Setterfield, when he had the last week's game when he came in from the VFL, took his chance and was one of the best on ground, I thought. So
I did too.
Yeah, it'd be stiff just to drop him, but
Well, I think, yeah, Plowman. I tell you what, Plowman's playing on the edge, isn't he? He's making some bad mistakes that are going to cost him his spot in that side if he's not careful. I think he did a couple of howlers last night. Cottrell only had the 10 possessions, but he kicked a couple of nice goals, so he probably holds his spot in the side. I thought that Conning was really disappointing last night. He only had the 8 possessions, didn't trouble the scoreboard, only had the 5 kicks, did a little bit of backup ruck work, but he disappointed me last night. I thought it was both Wiedering and Lewis Young's worst games of the year, just about, the way they played. And Zach Fisher, I thought, disappointed last night. He was nowhere near as impressive as he was in previous weeks, as was O'Brien.
And that was coming back to what you were saying about our wings, right?
Yeah, really? Still worried about our wings. Nunes, did Nunes go up as an emergency? I think he might have got up as an emergency as well as Silvani. Because I don't think Nunes played in the VFL game either.
No, he didn't.
So, he's another option that they could bring back. Yeah, not sure if Setterfield deserves to be dropped. He had 16 possessions, laid 6 tackles. He wasn't our worst, John. Marching in for Newman. Yep. Hewitt if fit for Kennedy. I agree. If not, Dow. Martin in for Durden. Well, Jack Martin kicked 1 goal in the VFL. Yeah, good on you. I just don't know that Jack Martin's done enough to earn his spot back. To be honest, I'd be playing him again in the VFL.
Pretty expensive.
I don't think he deserves to come up again.
Pretty expensive stock playing in running around to.
You shouldn't be taking into account what they get paid.
I know we
as
shouldn't,
to whether they get a game or not.
I know we shouldn't, but you can't help it if you think about it.
The club probably keeps an eye on that.
Yeah.
But anyway, McGovern's come back for a couple of weeks now. What did you make of his game last night? 15 kicks, 3 hand passes, 11 marks. So he's certainly doing the job in terms of taking marks. Laid 2 tackles. He is that sort of intercept marking centre half back that we probably need back there, isn't he?
Look, I think you've got to persevere with him.
Yeah.
I think the news of Liam Jones being signed potentially by the Bulldogs.
Going back home to the Bulldogs, is that what he's doing?
That makes Carlton supporters really just shake their heads, I suppose, after all of this circus. But hopefully we do get some compensation for him.
Yeah.
Which, how the hell that worked out, I don't know. But
can I ask you, would Jack Silvani keep his spot in the side after that performance last night?
Oh, well.
8 kicks, 5 hand passes, so that's 13 possessions. 3 marks, 4 tackles, and kicked a goal.
Pro rata based on game time, definitely.
Yeah, I tend to agree.
He
gave us a little bit. He gave us a little bit of a spark, didn't he, when he came onto the ground?
Yeah.
All right. We're going to have our work cut out against the Brisbane Lions next week. That's all I know. It's going to be a ring-a-ding-ding game, but
we're going to need
to be guaranteed a spot in the finals. We need to win one of our next 3. But even if we don't win one of our next 3, we still have some chance of being there still.
Yeah, we're going to need Curnow and Mackay between them to kick at least 8 or 9 goals, at least.
And they're up against Harris Andrews.
Yes.
And what's his name? Is it Adams? Marcus Adams? Yeah. Is it Marcus Adams?
Adams? Yeah.
They're not easy players to play on.
No.
Are they? And you're going to have Brownlow medal favourite Lockie Neal running around in the middle, as well as McCluggage and Lyons and Zorko and guys like that. And up forward, you're going to have Hipwood and Joe Danaher and Daniel McStay running around. I'll tell you what, they're not going to be easy to knock off. And, of course, the biggest threat of all, Charlie Cameron.
Yeah. I mean Charlie Cameron, I don't want to be – I mean, how we play him is hard enough. The ball comes in.
Yeah.
I mean, he'll just there's 5 or 6.
And there's
guys.
one other player who's guaranteed to have his best game of the year next year because he always does every time we play him.
Okay.
Mitch Robinson.
Sorry.
Every time we play Brisbane, good old Mitchie turns it on. He really does. He really sets himself for the Carlton game every year.
Yeah.
So anyway, look, it's not going to be easy, that's for sure. Brisbane are a far more difficult team to beat on their home deck than what they are away from home. So, anyway, so there you go. So that's our wrap-up of the Carlton and Adelaide fiasco last night. I just wanted to touch on a couple of other things that are non-game day related, if you like.
Yeah, I'll touch on some too after you.
The first thing I just want to quickly touch on is, did you see the email that came in from the club offering you a chance to fill out the survey?
Yep.
Did you see that?
I did.
And did you get around to doing it?
Oh, just too busy. Just too busy. Did you?
And they offer some sort of, signed Guernsey? You might be the recipient of a signed Guernsey if you fill it out.
Yeah, it's a prize to go in.
You got if every one of our so-called 90,000 members fills out the survey, you got a 1 in 90,000 chance of winning a signed Guernsey. What's more important to me is what's going to come of this information, and when are we going to get told about it?
You know what the
if we're going to get told about it.
So the information is for their sponsors. It's for the AFL. It's for themselves. It's not for the members. It's a member-based club that any survey information should be shared with them. And
in other words, we want you to tell us information about what you do and how you think, right?
Yeah.
So that we can benefit from that. But we're not going to tell you what the results of everything we've collected is.
No.
So it's all about what we can get out of you, not what we can give back to you.
But Vince, that's okay if Telstra or Origin Energy or someone surveyed me, right, and said, we want to know about what you think. I'd go into that with my eyes wide open, knowing that there's a commercial interest in them getting my information about what my shopping habits are, what my thoughts are. Yeah, that's fine. No problems. And you go in there and you go, you know what, do I want the Guernsey or not? Or whatever the prices are. Yep. This, though, is not about the prices. This is about member information to better the club, to better the football club, to better the members' experience.
Yes, it's what it should be for.
That's our club. We're not for-profit per se, right? Aren't we, really? We're for-profit, but we're really for the members. We're a member-owned club.
Yeah.
Right?
If there is a profit, it should be used to further the experience of the member.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So any information that I share with them or you share with them, we'd love to be de-identified for privacy purposes and tick all those boxes.
Sure.
But we'd like to know how that sat in the scheme of everything. So if you're going to run a census, like the government run, because that's what essentially the governments are, not for profit. Well, that's an understatement. They're certainly not.
Yeah, they're all for debt.
Yeah. But you're going to run this information should be shared back with the members. In its purest, the data should be shared purely responses, not cooked up, not massaged, but should be shared. So, yeah. Disgrace.
All right. Well, it'll be interesting to see what comes of it, if anything at all.
I'll link this to another issue, and I think I know you're going to talk about it, but I'll mention it anyway first. Yeah. So the Manly issue with the jumpers.
Well, that's what I was going to bring up.
Okay, sorry.
The Manly 7. They're referring to these 7 NRL players that all play for Manly Football Club.
So if you're not,
let's just explain this to anyone who might have been on another planet. These 7 players objected to having to wear a Pride Guernsey, which has got rainbow colours all over it, because of their personal and religious beliefs. And as a result of that, they didn't play the game on the weekend. And not only didn't they play the game, but they were told to stay away from the stadium because it might create trouble for the police and also, I guess, create potentially violent situations that could harm other innocent fans who were attending the game. What did you make of, first of all, the whole issue around them not wearing the Guernsey, and then we'll discuss after that the issue of them being told to stay away, because that's another thing that furthered the problem.
So the whole idea of that, the Pride Guernsey, was that the club were all aligned and they all had as a club approach, right? So let's call it, if you make it relevant to Carlton, the orange socks. I don't know how you want to make it relevant. I'm trying to link it.
Well, Carlton has a Pride Guernsey with their women's team, for example.
Yeah, they do too. But I'm just
when they play the Western Bulldogs.
I'm just trying to take that issue away from it and just talk about where I'm going with this one. So, if you do have a cause or something that you're trying to promote, you as a club that you believe will is for the betterment of the club.
Well, you're creating awareness is what they all use.
Creating awareness
as a reason for doing these things.
Okay, wouldn't you get everyone in the club firstly on board with that? Number one, wouldn't you get them all on board? You'd have to, because you can't create awareness of something that no one was in the club was aware of. That the club was supporting. Can you?
Yep.
So, firstly, you need a consensus that is what you want to create awareness for, and it needs to be spoken to them. So the problem that Manly had was that these jumpers, the idea of these jumpers was just basically cooked up, and then
it was just thrust upon these players without their knowledge, without their prior knowledge or approval or involvement.
Whether you
just told to wear them.
Whether you believe in the cause, whatever cause it is not the point. If you're going to be getting into or creating awareness for whatever you're creating awareness for, firstly, get everyone to buy in first, and then talk about it. Like, surely they have a club education program, or have a club programs around creating awareness of this. You can't create awareness externally if you don't have it internally first.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the first thing. Now, they couldn't have got all these jumpers organised and all of these round that they were going to play in, or the awareness match, if they hadn't already thought about this for some weeks prior.
Of course.
Not months. Yeah. So you've got to get the players on board, but not just the players, the staff, the club. It's got to be a whole of club approach, or there's got to be some approach.
Yep.
So that's my point on that.
No, what they did is that they were so arrogant and audacious about this is what we stand for, and we don't have to consult with anyone else at the club. We're just going to do this. And they thought that they could just do it, give the players the jumpers, and they're just going to automatically wear them. Well, 7 of these players said, sorry, but this is contrary to our beliefs and our opinions of this issue, and we're not prepared to wear them. And look, whether you agree or disagree on the issue, put that aside.
Yeah.
Why should anyone be forced to wear something or be part of something that they don't believe in? Why should they?
No, they should be forced. No, they shouldn't be forced.
Well, they were. They were forced. Well, when I say they were forced, if they wanted to play, they had to. It's a little bit like getting injected last year, Liam Jones. You want to play? You have to have an injection against your will. Otherwise, you're not going to be allowed to play.
Yeah.
And what did he do? No worries. See ya.
So
now, interestingly, all of a sudden, it's not as important to have the injection anymore. They've dropped that. So Liam Jones has lost an entire season because of a policy that used to be in existence and now isn't. He should sue the pants off the AFL for 1 year's salary. and he would win, hands down.
Well,
that's what he should do.
He's going to get a 3-year contract.
Doesn't matter. That's irrelevant. What he's going to get in the future is irrelevant.
I know.
Right?
I'm being sarcastic. But
that just goes to show you, right, the arrogance and audacity at the AFL level, just like the arrogance and audacity at the NRL level. Do you know that Peter V'landys, the guy who heads up the NRL, the CEO?
Rugby league.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it. You love saying that. Yeah.
Yeah. He said words along the lines of, everyone knows where the game stands. If you don't want to be inclusive, you can stand down. The game is for everyone. Well, Peter V'landys, why don't we have a good listen to those words and apply them to you and your honchos in the NRL? If the game is for everyone and you don't want to be inclusive, you can stand down. That's what you said. That's what this man said. Well, guess what they've done with those 7 players at Manly? They weren't allowed to play. So is the game really for everyone? No, it's not. It's not for anyone who doesn't agree with your bloody view of the world and the way the game should operate. So it's not for everyone, is it, Mr. V'landys? It's only for everyone who agrees with you. That's what it is. It's only for everyone that agrees with all of these people who have all of these social justice causes that impose their political views on everyone else to have to follow suit. And it sucks. It stinks. And the whole lot of them should fall on their sword. Use your own words and apply them to yourself, Mr. V'landys. You should resign for not being inclusive.
Yeah. If you had a grassroots approach, and the club consulted everybody and spoke about it, some people may say, hey, look, I've heard what you got to say. I don't necessarily appreciate you talking to me. I might not necessarily agree with it, but you know what? I'll wear the jumper anyway. Or I won't. Or I don't know.
But these people were never even consulted.
No, this is exactly.
But Steve, the point is also, even if they were, even if the club did all the right things about talking to the players beforehand, consulting them, making sure that they were all on board, you can't force people to share your opinions. You can't force people to share your political views. Now, this is a hot potato political issue at the end of the day. And those symbols, like the rainbow symbols and all that stuff, they are political. I don't care what you say, they are political symbols because they represent the political interests of these groups of people. And you're forcing people who may hold different views to toe the line. I'll tell you what, have a look at what they did to Israel Folau. Same sort of thing. All he did within the confines of his own church was read out a scripture that came from the Bible. And for that, he was hounded out of the country, not even allowed to play his own game, the game that he is best in the country at, within his own country anymore. He's got to go to Japan. Is that right? It stinks. And it's always these goddamn left-wing lunatic causes that these people force everyone else to have to go along with, whether they like it or not. And if you dare speak against it, right? Oh, you're cancelled. The cancel culture comes out. All of a sudden, you're not welcome here. We don't want you here. Right? It's just so wrong. It's not funny.
Yeah, I think the consultation is the big part here for me, in my view on this one.
Yeah, but consultation or no consultation, it still may not convince these people to just toe the line and wear the jumper. Right? It may convince some, or it may make a difference in how they feel about having this thing presented to them. But you still can't force it upon people against their will. You shouldn't be allowed to, is what I'm saying. So it's a bit like the AFL, right? Remember that plebiscite that we had 5 years ago on the issue of gay marriage? What did the AFL do? They took off the letters AFL on their own symbol at AFL House and replaced it with YES because they were encouraging the yes vote. Talk about getting involved in political issues, eh? Would you expect anything else from the GayFL led by Gillan McLaughlin? I cannot wait for that moron to resign and nick off and let this competition start becoming one that's about football and not about every other social justice cause in the country or the world for that matter. It should never have been imposed on everyone else at the AFL. If anyone else who worked at the AFL felt differently, God help them if they spoke out about it, because they probably would have lost their job. True?
Well,
imagine if you worked at the AFL and you came in and said, who's put YES on the front of the building? Because I'm not going to vote yes. What would have happened to that person?
Well, it'd be interesting to know how what the consultation was like there, I suppose.
This has got nothing to do with which side of the fence you're on.
No,
this has got to do with, should anyone be allowed to impose and enforce their view of the world upon anyone else in a sense of, work or playing sport or anything else? Why should these people be able to bully, if you like, everyone else into following their views and their opinions? It's just wrong. It would be the same if it was a right-wing cause. But funnily enough, people on the right side don't do this. They don't impose all of these things on anyone else. It's always the other side. Coincidentally.
So, yeah,
Does
I'm
it surprise you?
I'm going to change this topic to another one I think you'll find interesting. Just for a minute or two. Not sure if you had a chance to catch up on and now I know this is a different sport, but on the issue that occurred with the Darebin Council regarding the Northcote golf course. Did you hear about that one?
Yes, I certainly did. And well, why don't you tell our viewers who may not know what we're talking about? What happened.
During lockdown, this is relevant because it's relevant to any sport really, right? It's not just happens to be golf, right? In this particular situation.
In this particular instance, it could have been a set of tennis courts, for all we know.
Yeah, or a football ground.
Or a football ground or a soccer stadium. Yeah. Who knows? So
during the lockdown period, golf was banned by the government.
That's another stupid, idiotic decision as well at the time.
For periods of time, when it was...
Would you expect anything else from that moronic premier of ours here in Victoria? Anyway.
So for a period of time, when it was allowed, it was two people in a group and whatever. Anyway, so during the time that golf was banned, the people were looking for open spaces because that was the only way they could catch up with people and having a picnic within 5 kilometres of their home and all the rest of it. Mm-hmm. So the Northcote golf course, amongst many golf courses, was sort of, if there wasn't a hole in the fence or an open gate, people basically created a hole in the fence and turned the golf course into a picnic, botanical gardens picnic area. So that was what people were doing. Now remember, cafes were closed, restaurants were closed, pubs were closed, all the rest of it. So that was the only way someone could really catch up.
Yep.
The Northcote golf course had pictures all over the papers and whatnot of people picnicking on all these fairways. So suddenly the people in Darebin thought, how good's this? This is a golf course, but because golf isn't allowed to be played here, I think this could be open space for us. So we're gonna actually now the golf opened back up again. We're going to petition the council, led by a couple of councillors, to shut the golf course and just turn it into open space, because golf's an elite sport. Mind you, we're talking, this is not Royal Melbourne or some elite country club. This is
this is a public golf course that's open to anyone of any income stream or any socio-economic status
Pensioners,
to go and play golf.
Different
This
nationalities.
is not, the National Golf Club down in Cape Schanck where you've got to be a member and pay thousands of dollars a year. This is a public golf course that, Joe Blow down the street can grab his, set of golf clubs with only, 9 clubs in it and go and have a hit of golf.
Absolutely. So anyway, so then they did this. So anyway, the council pushed this agenda, and there were people left, right, and centre talking about a golf course that essentially was a normal golf course, and now it was going to be closed.
Mm-hmm.
So the government they'd spent money doing a feasibility study and working it out, and one of the options was to shut it at 3:00 for golfers, and from 3:00 till whatever time in the day, picnickers would come on the course. Or night, right? And then, but of course, the last golf tee time would need to be 1:00 for them to be off the course by 3:00.
That's only because there's 9 holes, and you can normally get through 9 holes in something like 2, maybe 2.5 hours.
So essentially, you'd only have between 7 and 1 to play golf, because if you didn't stop at 1,
7 a.m. when it's light enough to start, and 1 o'clock the last time, so that you're finishing by 3 or 3:30.
Yeah. So they, surprise, they did a feasibility study, and guess what? The cost of cleaning up the golf course at the end of each day, because remember, these picnickers aren't paying to use the golf course. That's free public land.
Yep.
Whereas the golfers are paying $25 or whatever to play.
Yeah. So they're going to lose on revenue.
Yes. They're losing that. They're losing from basically.
Oh, I've got a good idea, Steve. Why didn't they charge the same green fees upon those picnickers per person, $25 each, to go and sit under a tree and have a picnic? See how many of them turn up then.
Well, of course.
I guarantee you that most of these picnickers would not have even been from the city of Darebin.
No.
And the other thing is, they weren't from the city of Darebin.
Well,
surprise.
It's on the border of Moreland and
Darebin. It is. The Northcote Golf Course is on Normanby Avenue, I think it is, which is effectively just on the Darebin side of when it becomes Moreland Road.
It's East Brunswick,
Brunswick East. Yeah, East Brunswick.
Correct.
So you probably had people from the Moreland Council coming up across the Merry Creek there.
Yeah.
And going over to spend time in the Northcote Golf Course.
So anyway, after all of these feasibility studies and debate,
I guarantee you 95% of these people would be Greens voters and tree huggers, and of course don't believe they should have to pay for anything at all, whether it be public transport, university, or anything else.
It's interesting though.
Honestly, what are councils becoming? They are becoming a haven and a cesspit for left-wing lunatics all over this state. And thank God the council finally made a sensible decision, because let's cut to the chase. They made a decision to not allow this to happen, and that the Northcote Golf Course essentially remains a golf course at all times.
Yeah, but golf courses are actually environmental great ecosystems, because you've got the trees, the bird life, the creek, all of that stuff. So it's not like
the estuaries, the wetlands, and the whole bit.
You're not knocking it down for a block of flats.
No, you're not.
So, in fact, people coming and trampling, more people trampling opposed to groups of 4 walking down the fairways. It's actually worse.
Yeah.
So
I applaud that decision. One for common sense, for a change.
Yeah, but they had to do they would have charged some consultants a fortune, would have charged to do
of course.
Studies, right?
Of course. The idiots that pushed, the idiot councillors, right, who no doubt were from the far left, who pushed for all of this within the Darebin Council, should show some decency and some integrity and resign immediately, seeing that this decision went against them and they pushed it so heavily. But I dare say they won't do that because they love being on the public purse.
So the money that was spent there. Point being, where does it start and stop?
Yeah.
If I get a group of residents that decide that Princes Park Oval number 1 is a good place for a picnic, right? And I get enough of them.
Yep.
How can we stop people? Can we reclaim that as not a football ground oval anymore and a cricket ground, and we just decide that it's a pick? I mean, where does it start and stop this debate?
The problem is, with all of these types of people, it will never satisfy them enough. It's never enough. Whatever ground you concede to their wishes, it's only the start, and it's never the end, because it's a little bit like what I've witnessed with all of this, with all of these social justice causes and all of these, celebrating this day and that day, and now we're going to start writing in things into the Constitution and all the rest of the business. It's never enough, and it will never stop. They just keep pushing for more and more and more and more. And I've had a gutful. I've had a gutful of all this, and as far as I'm concerned, they can all get lost. They can get stuffed.
So the
I will never support these people because they just impose their will on everyone else, and doesn't matter, no matter how much you concede for the sake of peace, they keep wanting more and more and more, and it will never be enough.
So the golfers we're talking about are probably poorer than the people that are
people pushing for open space. Yeah.
Because these people, like, this is the cheapest golf course you could possibly play in Victoria, one off, other than going into the country.
In Melbourne metropolitan area, it would be one of the cheapest and closest to the city.
Correct.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. Interesting. All right. That was good to see that the decision there went in the favour of the golfers and the people who wanted to retain the golf course as a golf course.
It relates to open space and other sports and recreation.
Yep. Sounds like we better finish up, Steve, because it sounds like your voice is just about had enough for the night.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hope everyone's enjoyed the show. Those of you who are still there with us, we apologise for it getting extremely late tonight. What are we? Nearly 9:45 or thereabouts. So thank you very much for your participation. We look forward to seeing you next Sunday night after we play the Brisbane Lions up in Brisbane on Sunday, the 7th of August. It's a 3:20 p.m. game, so it'll be over by about 6 o'clock. We'll be on air 2 hours later, we hope, barring any technical difficulties. And we'll look forward to seeing you then. But don't forget to watch some of our other shows on social media that relate to Carlton, specifically, of course, our own In the Blue Corner Wednesday edition with Joe Lutzer and Chris Beach on Wednesday night, where they discuss all the team changes or anticipated team changes. And also don't forget Rocco and the boys on the Jumper Punch on Tuesday night. That should be a really good show. I think they're all a bit fired up after last night's performance. I think there'll be a few things said, no doubt. Can't wait for Rocco's rant and Mars's Malocchio and segments like that. But anyway, so of course we're talking about the Jumper Punch on Tuesday night at 8 o'clock, followed by Wednesday night at 8 o'clock, where they have the full interview of the week. And I think. And don't forget, we've got the Bazzusto roast. I'm hosting that next Thursday night, in fact, at the Arrow on Swanston in Carlton. Should be a great night. The Bazzusto family will be there. Well, in fact, all of the members of the Bazzusto family, the whole lot of them, Peter and Shelley, as well as their 2 kids. And I think there'll be a host of past players and coaches in attendance as well. So it should be a great night. If you're wanting to secure a ticket, I think it might be a bit too late now. I think Goz Margetta, who organised the whole thing, might have had to put in his final numbers. But if you're watching the show and you still want a ticket, maybe you can fire in a quick request to him. I think you'll find him on social media, GOZZ, and his surname is Margetta, Margeta. So look him up on Facebook or on one of our social media pages. So anyway, no doubt Goz will be back with his show very soon. So Steve, I think we're just about done for the night. Anything
Yeah,
else you
I
want to say?
Look, interesting to see what response the players provide. I'm not expecting to win the game next week, but
yeah,
it's all about the response.
It is indeed. All right, everyone. See you again next Sunday night at 8 o'clock. And in the meantime, go Blues.